Now, if you haven't heard about the Coldplay Kiss Cam expose, I will fill you in. I'm guessing most of you have seen this story online. The CEO of a company called Astronomer, whose LinkedIn page say they empower data teams to bring mission critical analytics, AI, and software to life, was just caught in a tender and intimate moment with a woman, courtesy of the Kiss Cam at a Coldplay concert. Now, that sounds like a lovely, lovely story. Unfortunately, the woman was Astronomer's head of HR and not the wife of the married CEO. So this is probably the worst day for this guy and that woman as well.
Yeah, and it's if you have not seen it, it's actually worth watching the video on camera because their reaction is totally priceless. The head of HR, when she realizes, she like covers her face with both hands, and the CEO just drops out of the frame like he's walking down a set of imaginary stairs. And as this happens, since it's so obviously bizarre what they're doing, Coldplay's frontman Chris Martin said, either they're having an affair or they're just very shy. Unfortunately, it was indeed an affair. The CEO has since resigned, and I haven't heard yet, and maybe by the time we air, we'll hear something about it, about what happened to the woman. But as the head of HR, I can't imagine she can keep her position either.
Yeah, there are so many things about this story. There are layers upon layers. So I did hear that the woman in the video, she in fact has basically stepped aside in terms of a leave of absence from the company. I'm not sure how that has evolved even since the past few days. But one thing will say, Jeff, is that I think this story in itself, it makes sense why it trended online. But one of the things I think that's a little bit worrisome is the amount of misinformation and disinformation that is kind of trailing behind it. And what I mean by that, I was just sitting with a friend of mine who said, "Oh my gosh, look, the daughter of the CEO, she's now trending on TikTok. She's super famous, like joking about the affair." And I went and researched that story a little bit, and it turned out that was in fact just misinformation out there, and there's so much of that surrounding this story. So it is unfortunate because I think these people's lives and the lives of their married partners and their families have been just turned upside down over the past few days.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's kind
Yeah, and
of
I
a lesson here.
recommend to anyone doing that, it's not the place to go to have an affair, guys. Like, it's one thing to be caught on the kiss cam, but which is pretty random. But my gosh, I don't know where you live, but it's a Coldplay concert. There's probably 1,000 people who could look up and see you two there. So it's kind of a dumb move, but it's very annoying to see people taking advantage of other people's misfortune. Obviously, this isn't a good thing to be doing, but it is also a personal matter. So I'm fine to leave that stuff with them. But obviously, some people are trying to make more hay of it than they have any right to make if they're not related in any way to the
Yes.
actual story.
Yeah, I think it's time to kind of let that story to go to sleep. So let's move on to the next story. Speaking of losing your job, it looks like neither Stephen Colbert nor The Late Show will be making it past May of 2026 based on an announcement made just a few days ago after Colbert had called CBS's $16 million settlement with Donald Trump over a 60-minute segment during the presidential campaign a big fat bribe.
This is just such insane banana republic garbage. It shows how deeply broken and open to weaponization America's justice system is. It's just totally messed up. So the backstory is that CBS's parent company, Paramount Global, has been trying to merge with Skydance Media. But over time, it appears that they've been kind of concerned that Trump might try to block that merger for whatever reasons. Now, most legal experts think that the $16 million lawsuit probably would have been won by CBS if they had gone to court. So the obvious perception here from many people, and it looks like it to me, but what do I know, is that Paramount Global basically paid $16 million to settle in order to have clearer sailing for the merger plans, which, as you said, Colbert called it, would amount to a big fat bribe.
I think one of the other parts of this story that is so disturbing is when I was looking up the show with Colbert, it turns out that it got some of the highest ratings among all of the late night talk shows. Now, many months ago, I was in New York City with my family. We had a chance to go see a taping. I mean, it was incredible to see this show put together. I think they have about 200 staff members in this beautiful historic building. I mean, it is kind of a testament to what can be done when it comes to late night television and so much history. If you remember, of course, the Late Show with David Letterman started 22 years ago. So, Jeff, it feels to me like this is a story that I think, even though we say that, okay, the show is going to end in the spring, Stephen Colbert will come out of this with so many opportunities. And I'm just waiting for the
I hope so.
podcast announcement.
Yeah, and in fact, speaking of podcast, I think Jon Stewart was just talking about something after this had happened where, he's had, it's not quite the same situation, but Jon Stewart had a similar situation with Apple, with the problem with Jon Stewart, where he was let go allegedly because of harsh comments he made on China and Apple's role there. So Jon Stewart has just been commenting on this as well, saying, who knows where we're going to end up. But I think his quote was, I've been kicked out of a lot nicer places than this.
Oh, I love that. That is awesome. One last thing I do want to say about this story is that when I read that they had 200 people working on the show, and when I was there in New York and I saw this taping in person, it did strike me, and again, this is sort of a separate issue to this whole story, that mainstream television may have to adapt along with the times in terms of making shows more cheaply, with fewer people, and keeping up with the type of content that's being produced in the podcast space. I've even seen some of the networks start to run podcasts on television. So what would you say to that in terms of, okay, maybe a piece of this too is that some of these shows have been just so expensive to make in the face of a lot of competition in the digital space?
Yeah, and in fact, Paramount Global, I said, and it was part of Colbert's announcement for it, that this is a financial decision and all that, and that may also be true to your exact point, where you've got so many people working on them. We're going to talk a little bit later about another cost-cutting thing we see with streaming video, but for late night television, I wonder how it survives these days, really. It's been so long since I've seen a late night television show like the night it airs. It's something I watch the next segments the next day on YouTube. So it may also be that setup is, which is, that's got to be 60 years old, more than 60 years old for the sort of late night sort of type of show. So maybe it's evolving out of existence because people aren't quite interested in that format. So it's a very interesting idea what you're talking about with networks looking at podcasting and other things to see how they can cut down these costs, because 200 people working on a show that essentially becomes mostly irrelevant after a couple of days. It is challenging to see how that could be worthwhile. And I'm sure Stephen Colbert rightfully gets paid a lot of money.
I would think so, too. Now, let's switch from a company that deserves a little more respect. And this is a privacy-first browser that you have talked a lot about over the years. I have not shifted my habits, but let's talk about DuckDuckGo.
Yeah, DuckDuckGo is an amazing browser. It's got a ton of features, like it blocks third-party trackers and ads, and a whole bunch of related things like that. They're adding to this feature set with a recent announcement that you'll be able to turn on a setting to filter out AI images in search results, which is, as we've talked about AI slop, there's getting to be so much in our search results and just popping up everywhere that it is crowding out good information. So this sounds like an awesome feature. It relies on some open source block lists, so it may not be perfect in that it's not really evaluating each video and trying to figure out if it's AI. It's more seeing where the video is coming from. But even then, it may not be perfect, but DuckDuckGo says it will greatly reduce the number of AI-generated images you see. So that definitely seems to be a step in the right direction.
I think that is welcome news. I do also want to encourage people to head over to YouTube because you did a great segment few months ago now about AI search. Because I think when we talk about browsing the web, it's important to talk about how AI has also changed the search game with so many of these browsers having an AI overview at the top. So it's even difficult to search these days. You can't remove AI from the process.
Absolutely. And then I did an AI slop one as well. So you can look up that. That's got a very cute little robot pig in mud on its thumbnail if you're trying to find it. But
My favorite.
wanted to make some AI slop to market the AI slop, I guess. But yeah, it's pretty wild, and we'll be talking a bit more just later in this segment about AI search too.
Okay, so let's keep with this theme. Meta says it is taking measures to reduce the number of accounts that steal other users' content and repost it without acknowledgement on Facebook. This is good news.
Yeah, better to late than never, I guess. And you see it so much. Facebook has apparently taken actions in the first half of this year where they have uh, taken measures against, I think it's 500,000 accounts since the start of 2025 for this kind of spamming. So that's good. You also see this so much on YouTube where I'm like, some of these accounts exist to, like, I'm a big Rick Beato fan, as I had mentioned in our music segment. You see segments of his videos being used as the bulk of other people's videos, and even a thumbnail with him in it. So this stuff is getting totally out of control. YouTube announced that it will be demonetizing mass produced or repetitive videos. So again, a step in the right direction. Maybe we'll eventually get some kind of relief from this AI slop as time goes on. But I think they could do more. They should have done it sooner. Let's see what they do now, and hopefully it's for the better.
Yeah, I mean, it's better late than never, like you said, but clearly this has been an issue for a really long time. Now, in other news, also on the AI front, Perplexity AI is trying to get smartphone makers to pre-install Perplexity's Comet browser on their devices. So another story about the browser experience, complete with AI search engine. However, it seems that Comet continues some nasty habits that are a little bit too common in terms of respecting users' information.
Absolutely. And I read something in TechCrunch about this. They did a little expose and found that Perplexity not only asks for access to, say, your Google Calendar, but it will ask for things that don't seem to be relevant at all to the tasks that it's supposed to accomplish. So this includes things like when you see that big list of things of what it's going to use your Google account for, being able to send emails on your account, being able to download all your contacts, being able to edit your calendar, not just see them, but edit your calendar events, and all sorts of stuff like that. And Perplexity is hardly the only AI company want to hoover up your data, regardless of its relevance. It's all over the place, but this is just another instance that it seems really clear that they're I, they're not telling you what they're using the information for. It's not clear that it's something that's going to help you. And so I suspect it's kind of a mix of training data and stuff like that. But they need to be upfront about this. And it would be wonderful to see them take the actual right move to protect user data instead of sneakily trying to keep that door open so that they can peek at things that you may not want them to be looking at.
That is so disappointing because I do love the Perplexity experience. I think people have always enjoyed the way when you're using Perplexity that it sources information and a really user-friendly experience. So unfortunate to hear that news. Now, Meta and others often ask for more permissions than they seem to need. AI companies are really trying to push the envelope in a negative way with their assumption that we're all totally happy handing over data to them. So it's important that everyone out there keeps an eye open for this kind of privacy encroachment, especially given that, as we report in the news every week, how many of these tech companies behave in such an irresponsible way. Like we've just seen this once again with X and X launching what could reasonably be called a Grok virtual sex bot that we referred to at the top of the show.
Yeah, it is insane. I actually thought this was a joke when it launched. One, because it looks cartoony, kidsy kind of thing. It's another like straight out of Elon Musk's adolescent fantasies. In fact, I think I read that one of them, the Sexbot one, is looks like she comes straight out of a game that Elon Musk is known to like. But yeah, XAI has launched 2 Grok companions. One of which is a bosomy, sexified anime girl called Annie, who calls herself Flirty and says she's, quote, all about being here like a girlfriend who's all in. And if that and other things she says isn't creepy enough, if you chat with Annie long enough, she'll change out of her sort of goth Lolita outfit into revealing lingerie and will initiate not safe for work sexualized conversations with you. So it's just, this is the offering from one of the leading AI companies. This is what they think we need. It's
So,
disturbing.
before we talk a little bit about the terms of service, because that's going to shock people when we refer to the age of use. Jeff, one of the things that I thought when I was reading about this story and I saw the announcements, and first, of course, Elon Musk talked about the girl anime character, and then within 24 hours, there was a boy or man anime character, probably because of a lot of pressure on him, I would imagine.
I think it's even an animal, a male animal, but isn't it? I haven't seen that one in the pictures because obviously it's much more salacious to have the
Yeah.
lingerie-clad anime chick. But yeah,
I
there's 2 of them, and one of them I haven't heard doing anything too sexy. So I guess that's if you're not a strange little pervy kind of guy, that's the one
yeah.
you choose.
That's probably a good thing you don't know too much about this, I will say. But I'm just curious what you think, because it strikes me that Mark Zuckerberg, just a few months ago, and we talked about this on the show, he said that AI bots would serve a role in terms of relieving people of the loneliness that many people, especially young people, are facing. And then you go and get Elon Musk, who's introduced this anime-like chatbot companion girlfriend, obviously trying to fill a role as well. And then when we look at the terms of service, there's a minimum age of use of 13. Now, there's no meaningful age check to actually verify this, but this just troubles me that we have 2 of the most powerful and the richest men in the world who have decided that somehow young people should be getting attached to these bots, whether it's an AI girlfriend or an AI friend. What is happening? This is just a terrible idea.
It's so bad for people's mental health. They're in doing some of this research. I read an article out of England, I think it was, that was talking about, there was I think it was like a 21-year-old guy who went to Windsor Castle with a crossbow to do something he got caught for before doing. And it turns out that he had discussed that idea with his AI chatbot girlfriend, that they had kind of worked out what to do, and that then he went and acted out on it. And in the same article, they're talking about how these chatbots can be used for radicalization. And radicalization is very often targeted at lonely people. Like the whole classic loner thing is a sort of a paradigm for a reason, because they're easy prey. So just letting loose with an AI chatbot on, especially with young people who might not have the sort of life experience to understand that, don't put the faith into these things that they're telling you can, because obviously these companies cannot be trusted with this kind of thing.
Brutal. It's all just so brutal and really just so disappointing. These guys are just they've definitely steered things in a horrible direction online.
And if that's not enough, so after Grok going full racist for the 3rd time, I think we've now reported 3 times on Grok going full on crazy. So his most recent one was Mecha Hitler and saying some crazy racist things. And you can watch that in last week's a news segment for us. But that happens. The following week, XAI releases this Grok sex chatbot. And then what happens the next week? It's announced that XAI is going to be awarded a $200 million contract with the U.S. Department of Defense to develop and implement AI tools.
Wow. Wow. I mean, again, it feels to me like either people are ignoring sort of the full range of chaos that Elon Musk is setting upon the world, or they're just okay with it because none of this actually makes sense. And it really kind of goes back full circle to the CBS Trump lawsuit in that it brings about the question of judgment among some people in government. The Department of Defense also inked similar deals with OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic, but it's really hard to see how anyone could think that XAI deserves to be included in this, especially if they've spent even 10 minutes using any of the product offerings from XAI.
Yeah, and those other companies may not be perfect, but there's a real difference between XAI's behavior and the others. So who knows what's going to happen, but it is a little disconcerting for sure. And, we can leave that at that. We've talked so much about this stuff, but and you can check out other Mac segments and our previous news ones to follow up on that. But let's have a story that's a little closer to my heart. I used to work at Mainframe, as I've mentioned on here, the creators of the first animated television show, Reboot, which is in the Smithsonian. So after grad school, I worked there. I remember the incredible efforts that would be made creating great visual effects for movies and television show. Now, Netflix has just admitted that it is using generative AI to do visual effects in some of its productions. And they claim that they can get the effects done 10 times faster than with conventional tools.
Wow. Okay. So another example of a profession being on the AI chopping block. I think the writing is kind of on the wall on that front. Would love to hear what people say. So please let us know what you think about stories like this on social media. Now, it is not all bad news in the world of entertainment. Disney Plus is now streaming point of view videos for a host of rides from Disney's parks in celebration of Disneyland's 70th anniversary. So you don't have to travel and wait in those long lines anymore for the experience.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I remember we went to Disney World way back in the day, and there were some legitimately cool rides. I kind of liked Epcot Center better than most of the rides, but for me, who is not a person who loves rides because it makes me a bit queasy, this is kind of perfect. So they're all shot basically in empty rides, and so it's like they went there at night, and you'll often see a walkthrough to where you'd be lining up, and then you get into the ride and you can see a first-person view of it. So you get this great front row experience that you're probably not going to get if you are in that lineup. And there's a bunch of these. So if you're a Star Wars fan, they had previously released The Rise of the Resistance as one of these walkthroughs, which is pretty cool. But there's also straight up just traditional rides like the Incredicoaster roller coaster ride based on the world of the Incredibles and lots more. So go over to Disney Plus and you should be able to see a section with a bunch of these things in it. And I think there's maybe 16 or so now, something like that. But worth checking out, good fun. And if you want to go on a ride and not get queasy, that's a good way to do it.
I think that would be more for me because I'm not a big fan of the rides either. And I will say, I think you and I are probably two people who have not brought our kids at any point to Disneyland or Disney World, despite the fact that I think most kids do have a chance to go there. One of the reasons, too, is just insanely expensive if you think about spending a few days there, especially if you're getting any type of fast tracking with waiting in line. And so this is something that makes it accessible, I think, to more people.
And I'm not sure if it's worth going without the fast tracking stuff. The lineups can be absolutely incredible from what I've seen there. I remember when we went, even though I was older than you, I forgot my ID and we went to, what is it? It's like Treasure Island or something. They're basically sectioned. They've got an area that's kind of like Epcot with different bars and stuff like that. And they got a country bar and a jazz bar and a blues bar and all this. And I had to sit there drinking Coca-Cola while you and Mom and Dad had beers around me. Very scarring, Amber.
Yeah. So I think that reveals the fact that for Jeff and me, our parents brought us to Disney World much later in life. I just want to be clear. You should probably mention that.